Hey guys, this is Whitney, and welcome back to another episode of Spastic Chatter. If you didn't know, Spastic Chatter is a platform meant to feature those in the cerebral palsy community, and I get together weekly with individuals with CP, like myself, to have an uncensored chat, if you will, about what it's like living with this type of disability. And for this week, I have Addie, and she has her own podcast called Strides, and we just recorded an episode for her podcast before this, so I of course wanted to do a little switcheroo and interview her for Spastic Chatter also. So I'm gonna let Addie introduce herself, and then we'll get on to the conversation. So take it away, Addie.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me today, Whitney. As Whitney said, I go by Addie. I like to say that my actual name is Constance. People always wonder, well, how do you get Addie out of Constance? That comes from my middle name, Adele, which is after my great-grandmother on my mother's side, so it has family significance. I'll be celebrating my 28th birthday this year, and the reason that has significance for me is because when I was born in 1993, all the doctors told my mother that I would be lucky, keyword being lucky, if I survived 15 minutes. I went on to graduate with honors from high school, did 2 years of college, some health-related things in conjunction with my disability began to interfere with my coursework. So I came home and took about 3 years or so to get all those issues under control. It was a uphill, downhill battle, but eventually I was able to start my own business, Access for All LLC, of which the Strides talk show and or podcast, if you will, is a department.
That's awesome. So there's so much to talk about. You brought so much stuff up. I kind of want to take it back from the beginning. Like, how would you describe your childhood while growing up with CP? I know that's a weird question, but I ask everyone that. Like, so how would you describe your childhood growing up?
Well, I would describe my childhood as, for lack of a better way of putting it, I was very lucky, blessed, if you will. My mother raised me as a single parent from the age of 7, technically, but even before that, she was doing single parent-like things because my father pretty much checked out from the beginning. But that being said, my mother made sure that I had an education, that I got to have nice birthday parties with my friends. I can't remember which birthday it was, but at one point we have what's called an exforium here, which is like a really nice science center. It's geared towards children, and they have birthday parties. And I remember one year my birthday party was actually at the exforium, and there must have been 10 other kids. It was a big party. High school was, well, let's just say nobody likes high school. But for me, it was a little more difficult because I was the kid that actually wanted to, be there, get good grades, and have done with it. And I was a lot of times in class with, this may sound a little stigmatizing, but with the football crowd, and those were not pleasant. I was the target of not necessarily physical, but verbal bullies. As, for example, they would call me the B word and other derogatory terms while I was going through the hallway. I think most of it was because, I managed to get along with most of my teachers, and for whatever reason, they didn't like that very much. They thought I got preferential treatment I suppose. But what they didn't understand is every year at the beginning of the school year, I would have to go to my teachers beforehand, before my IEP was even sent out. That's individual education plan, which students with disabilities in public schools have, in case none of you know what that is. But the point is, it was supposed to be given to all my teachers before school started, but it was never sent out on time. And it detailed what my accommodations were supposed to be, such as note taker, extra time on test, just your general accommodation stuff. But I would always have to tell my teachers, due to the fact that my IEP was always several weeks late. So that part was not very pleasant.
Yeah. So you mentioned high school. Did you go beyond high school? Like, did you
Yes,
go
I
to
went.
any trade
I
school
went
or anything
to
like
public
that?
high school. Yes. It was actually a very nice high school. It wasn't the high school that was in my district. A lot of times, the high schools that students go to are assigned by the district you're in for your county. But my mom was determined that I was going to go to a different high school than the one that was assigned for our district, because the one that was assigned for our district at the time had 13 confirmed gangs, and it was not at all wheelchair accessible. So that in itself was a trick.
How did graduating high school? How did your life look after you graduated? Did you go off? Did you continue your education, or did you dive right into your disability advocacy? Like, what did that look like?
Yes, I graduated high school in 2012, and by then I had already been accepted to and gotten a full ride scholarship to the University of Alabama, which is my state college, because I was born and raised and am currently based in the coastal city of Mobile, Alabama. I spent 2 years there in what's called the New College Department, which is basically a program for students that want to study something that is not part of the normal degree programs. You declare, after so many hours of general studies, you declare a focus for your degree. At the time that I left due to illness in 2014, I had not yet declared my focus, due to the fact that I was behind in my studies from being so sick. But while I didn't say it at the time, now, almost 7 years later, that has worked to my advantage.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about that, or do you have any more to say on that?
We can. So, at this time, while nothing has been put into concrete, I have applied to go back to school online through the same university that I left, because they have a program called New College Life Track, which is for working adults who have previous coursework completed at that university, but who cannot or do not want to be resident students. It's specifically good for people in my situation, not only from the disability standpoint, but from the point that I run a business, because this way I don't have to move what would for me be about 3.5 hours away, thus uprooting my entire business.
That's awesome. I kind of want to talk about your business, as you say. Is it called Access for All? Do you want to talk about how you started it and like kind of what you do?
So it is Access for All, or Access for All LLC, if you will. I consider the two interchangeable for me. They both mean the same thing, although on legal papers you will see the LLC included. And specifically speaking, our mission statement is to help ensure that the Americans with Disabilities Act, acronym ADA, is fully enforced tomorrow by educating the world today. It is an organization that focuses mainly on education, although that's not to say that we don't do other things, such as when specifically scheduled, I will go to a public accommodations facility that's mainly your hotels, restaurants, any public facility that you can think of, really, and do an inspection from pretty much parking lot to top to determine what needs to be done in order for that facility to be fully compliant with the ADA. I haven't gotten a lot of those in recent months and really the past year and a half or so, of course, due to the pandemic.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about like why you started Access for Life?
Access for All.
It sounds really cool.
So I started Access for All actually for a lot of reasons. For a lot of reasons that are similar to why you recently told me, Whitney, that you do the work that you do online with Diversibility and Spastic Chatter. I tried to go the 9 to 5 route. I went through my state vocational rehabilitation office and Goodwill Seals in order to put in applications for 9 to 5 jobs and that sort of thing. But I knew I never really wanted just, 9 to 5, $15 an hour jobs for the rest of my life because I didn't really feel like I could make an impact in those positions. And after a year and several rounds of submitting applications and not even one call for an initial interview, just an initial interview, I said, this is not working. And so my counselors at the time with the vocational rehab facility suggested that I start my own business, which was probably the best thing that vocational rehabilitation ever did for me. Since then, at this point, I no longer receive vocational rehabilitation services, but that in itself is another story. Let's just say the moral to that whole story, without giving the whole story, is while state programs in and of themselves are not a bad thing, there are people that within those programs that will abuse the power they have been given in order to do harm to others.
Yeah. No, we could go on forever about the state programs, but that's a different podcast. Speaking of podcasts, I was just on an episode of yours, your podcast Strides. Do you want to talk about your podcast?
Yes.
And what's it about? Why you started it?
Mm-hmm. So Strides is actually me and my team. We actually prefer the term talk show instead of podcast, and the reason being is we film our episodes with our guests who have all range of disabilities, and then we post them on YouTube. At this point, we are more than halfway done with our second season, and the entire first season and episodes 1 through 4 of the second season are ready for viewing, and the 5th episode of the second season will be ready for viewing this coming Saturday as we release 8 episodes a season, and once the season gets going, we will release an episode every Saturday until the season is over. Usually seasons are about 8 episodes long. As for when and how it started, the strike started, we started filming in September of last year, 2020, but the discussion started before then. The basic premise behind the show is to film and interview people with disabilities who are currently making or want to make an impact within their communities and beyond. And what I mean when I say beyond is also outside of their immediate communities.
That's awesome. And I will put the link in the description for your Strides talk show and for the Access for All, so people can check it out. At the end of every episode, Addie, we have a similarity, and I ask my guests if they have any advice for others in similar situations in their life. So, do you have any advice for people who want to start a business or anything like that?
Mm-hmm. My advice would be, well, there's several pieces of advice that I could give, but I would say the main one is, if someone tells you can't do something, if what you want to do is not illegal, then there's no reason you shouldn't do it. And the reason being, a lot of times, those of us with CP and other disabilities, because of whatever is going on with us physically, or even for those of us with learning and mental disabilities, our intelligence is oftentimes vastly underestimated. Vastly. And that also means that what we're able to accomplish is vastly underestimated. There were times when I was told in my younger days that I had to be in special education. Funny story, my mom actually had my IQ tested twice because they basically do an IQ test on every student in a public school program at a certain age, although I'm not sure what that age is. But in any case, when I took that test the first time, my mother looked at it and she's like, someone has made an error here. And that's not just mom pride speaking, because I raised this child and she was speaking full sentences at 18 months old. How I did that, I'm not sure. But in any case, her IQ can't possibly be this low. So I took it again, and while to this day I'm not sure what it was apparently above average range. And all of that is not to brag. It's just to say your doctors and so forth, they can give you advice pertaining to your health. And yes, to an extent, you should work with your doctors. You should listen to that advice. But when you know something doesn't sound right, don't listen to it.
Yeah. So you know your support system and yourself. You know your body. You know your body best. You know your mind best. And just it all comes down to advocating for yourself and what you want to accomplish. Thank you, Addie, for being a guest on Spastic Chatter. I really enjoyed talking with you. And for those of you watching this, if you want to be a guest, you can always leave a comment anywhere you see this video, or there is a form in the description for you to fill out. And I'd love to have anyone and everyone as a guest. But check back next week for another episode of Spastic Chatter. Thanks. Bye.